BioFix. All the very best will surely come on 2020.
Yes, all the best, BioFix.
Team BioFac India would like to thank all their partners, exhibitors and visitors.
Hello everybody, we are happy that you joined us for the third edition of OrganicWebinars, a series hosted by Nürnberg Messe India, BioFach India, and curated by BioReporter International. The BioReporter team I may introduce. This is a Sandeep Kamat based in Bangalore. He's board member of IFOAM Asia. He has been active in the organic sector since more than a decade as a consultant, founder, organizer, and speaker, and much more. He's especially dedicated to the biodynamic community and its philosophy. So, hi, Sandeep.
Hi, Karen. Thank you so much. And that is Karen Heinz, based very close to Frankfurt in Germany. She's the founder of BioReporter International Communication Service. And she has been in the organic sector for almost 40 years as an organic journalist, photographer, videographer, and always inspired by the ideas of the worldwide organic movement.
Dear audience, with this organic webinar series, we would like to update you on important topics from the organic sector, and with the help of international and Indian experts, we will do that. Today we have again 2 international experts and 2 from India. So we will focus on the European organic regulation and its impact on Indian organic exports. Sandeep and me, we are happy to guide you through this program as moderators, and we have 90 minutes ahead full with information, high quality presentations for your information, and your questions, of course. But first, I will open the screen for Shivakumar Venugopal. He's the group director and member of the management board of Nürnberg Messe India.
Thank you, Karen and Sandeep. Good afternoon to everyone from India. On behalf of Nürnberg Messe India, I take this opportunity to welcome one and all for today's webinar, which is the third in the series for sure will continue to be an interactive engagement platform for the organic industry in India for the next few months. It's my pleasure to welcome our esteemed panelists and delegates to the webinar organized by Nürnberg Messe India on new EU regulations, its impact on Indian exporters, and mitigating measures under the ambit of BioFac India, which, as you all know, is India's biggest exhibition for the organic sector, being organized with an aim of bringing various domain experts together on a single platform to address the key issues of sustainability and healthy living. Our sincere thanks to APIDA for their continuous support in organizing BioFac with us. Today, on the occasion of this webinar, I would like to specially welcome our esteemed panelists, Ms. Marian Blom, Vice President, IFOAM Organics, Mr. Marco Schlüter, International Development Manager, Naturland, Mr. Sandeep Bhargava, Chief Executive Officer, Cert International, Mr. Narayana Upadhyaya, Managing Director, Aditi Organic Certificate, and of course, a warm welcome to our moderators also, Ms. Karin Heinz, Founder, Bio Reporter International from Germany, and Mr. Sandeep Kamath, Board Member, IFOAM Asia, for their valuable ideas, knowledge, and time to make this program a successful one. Also, a warm welcome to all the attendees for today's session, and extremely grateful for your continuous support for BioFac events over the years. I'm sure once again you're going to make the most out of today's session. To make the program more interactive, we will have question and answer sessions. I also thank supporting associations, ICOVA, the International Competence Center for Organic Agriculture, OFI, the Organic Farming Association of India, AIOI, the Association of Indian Organic Industry, and our media partner, Pure and Eco India, for their support as well as the series of webinars. Before I hand over the floor for today's discussion, I also take this opportunity to make an important announcement on our BioFac India 2020 show. The 12th edition will be organized this year in a digital format from October 29 to 31st, 2020 by Nürnberg Messe India. The We Go Digital Edition will offer comprehensive presentations and year-long networking and community building opportunities. I hope the industry will definitely benefit out of this digital platform. The digital event will be held under the aegis of Agriculture and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority, which is APIDA, under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, and would aim to e-connect all the key players from the organic and natural industry over a single platform. Thank you. And now I will leave the floor open for discussion and presentation. Over to Sandeep and Karin.
Thank you so much, Shivakumar, and very exciting news. Thank you for that announcement that we will go digital this year. So dear participants, to make this webinar as interesting, helpful, and interactive as possible for you, please let me explain some technical issues on Zoom to have a lively discussion and an interactive session with you all. To make the voice quality as best as possible, please keep your mics muted. Only speakers will keep their mics switched on. On the Zoom screen, you will see two icons at the bottom, the chat scene as well as the question and answer. So for your comments, please use the chat box. And if you have any question and answers, please put it onto the question and answer box. Please make sure that you put your email next to your questions, because in case we are not able to answer your questions, we can then reply to you by email. We really appreciate your feedback. So we will have a quick poll during the webinar, and one feedback form will be sent to you after, so you can help us make this program better. This event is being live streamed on YouTube, and the recordings will be available after the show at YouTube channels of BioFac India as well as Bio Reporter International. Ravi, can you please put the link of the YouTube channel in the chat room? And Karen, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sandeep. So again, and for all who joined us later, good afternoon and hello. You are participant of this webinar now concerning the new organic EU regulation and its impact for India. My pleasure is to introduce our first expert, and that is Marian Blom. She's from Netherlands with us today, and she has studied economics, and as she told me in her second career, she studied organic agriculture in the University of Wageningen. She has been engaged in the Dutch organic sector since long and is part of the Dutch organic retail organization BioNext. She's also Vice President of IFOAM Organics Europe. And as Vice President, she focuses, among others, on the new organic EU regulation and will explain to us basic, important to know facts of the guidelines. So the screen is yours, Marian.
Thank you, Karin. Good afternoon to you all. And I'm honored to be invited in this webinar series. I've seen from it, it's really high quality and it's really, well, it's my pleasure to participate in it. First, when we start speaking about organic regulation, I think it would be first relevant to know why is Europe so relevant for Indian organic producers? Well, it's quite clear India is the 7th importer of produce in the European Union by volume. I don't have the word, but it's the volume, and it's 5% of the imports in volume into the EU are coming from India. Next, please. If you look at what products that are imported, first product that is imported is rice, and with rice, it's the 2nd importer after Pakistan of organic rice into the European Union. Other products that are in the top 5 are oil cakes, wheat and cane sugar, soya beans, oilseed, other than soybeans, and unroasted coffee, tea, and mate. Next, please. And from the other side, you can see that the European Union is the 2nd largest export country for India after the USA. So I would say that it's quite relevant for Indian producers to know what's going on in Europe. So let's turn to Europe now. Next, please. Yes, this is Europe. Europe has organic regulations since 1991. And it is a European law. And this law is applicable in all the 27 member states. We used to have 28, but the UK left the European Union. So now we're 27 member states. And this European law is implemented by the member states' authorities. And if you look at the elements that are in the European law, they are very similar to the rules that are regulated in India by the NPOP. We have rules for plants, for animals, for feed, for aquaculture, and but also a way to regulate the imports from outside the EU to the European Union. And what I would like to point out at this point, we do not have in the European Union rules for producer groups, group certification. So group certification, producing together under one certificate is not allowed in the European Union, but it is allowed for products coming into the European Union. Next, please. And I would like to zoom in a little bit now on the systems that are allowed, that are used to allow products that are produced following the organic standards in other sides of the world and that are imported to the European Union. There are basically 2 systems. There is a system of equivalency of countries. So you can have a national standard in another country and it's accepted by the European Union as being equivalent. There are 30 countries with this status. And there is a second system. If you do not have a country or the equivalence is not complete, where such a system is in place, then you can have a control body in that country that has a standard of its own that can be equivalent to the European Union standards. And then you can produce following those standards and it will be accepted as being equal to the European standard and can be sold as organic in Europe. As it is, the NPOP and the EU have a form of equivalence. So it's India is recognized as an equivalent third country for 2 product categories, for unprocessed plant products and for vegetative propagating material and seeds for cultivation. If you would happen to produce following other products, you would have to find a control body in India with an accreditation for other product categories. Now, there is an interesting point here. If we in the European Union do not have producer groups, how can we judge the equivalence of producer groups to the European standard? And that is because in the current organic regulation, or actually it's not in the regulation, the European Union has guidelines for accepting group certification. And here I listed some elements of these guidelines. And if you fulfill these elements, then the European Union accepts products coming from producer groups following these guidelines as being controlled enough to be well, called organic. I will not mention them all, but it is a system meant for small farms. They have to be geographically close together. They have to be formally established, have a system of collective marketing, and an internal control system being set up. And there have to be also controls inside the group, and also a number of controls from external inspectors to those groups. And this producer group system is quite relevant for India, because if you look at the number of producer groups you have, actually it is the country in Asia with the largest number of groups with internal control systems. And not all are exporting, of course, to Europe. Not all are producing completely organic, but it's a system that's applied a lot in India. Now let's turn to the new organic regulation. What I've told until now applies to the current system, the current regulation. There is a new regulation being worked on since 2014. It will enter into force next January, but we have laid down a request to extend its implementation for another year, basically because of COVID crisis and the fact that the CBs may not be ready to implement the new regulation already next year. And we have high hopes that this request will be granted, but we're not sure yet. This regulation, I will not go into depth. Presentations further on will do that. But if I look at it with a helicopter view, you can say that the scope has broadened. So there are new product categories under the regulation. The impact has deepened a bit. There are less derogations allowed, for instance, for conventional feed or conventional inputs in processed products. And we can see a harmonization of the regulation between the member states. Things that were until now left to the member states themselves to further implement, they are now described on the European level. And very importantly, there is a change in the import system. And this I will focus on a bit more. This import system will change that the countries that are now deemed a third country with an equivalent national standard, these will be replaced by an equivalency as part of a trade agreement. And the CBs that now have an equivalent standard, they will have to turn to inspecting following a system completely compliant to the European regulation. I will zoom on these two systems a bit more. Next, please. Thank you. First, the trade agreements. It means basically that all current equivalency agreements will have to be renegotiated and replaced by trade agreements. This is a big job, and the Commission has taken 5 years to end it. Until that time, the current system stays in place. But the negotiations have to start quickly because it can take years before a trade agreement is really concluded. In September, the first talks will start, and the Commission has made a list of priorities where they say the countries where the EU exports to themselves have the highest priority. And for instance, the United States, we export a lot to the United States, so that will be the first country to enter into contact with. But we know from information that preliminary talks with India have already taken place. Then the system of equivalent CBs turning to compliant. One of the reasons for the change was actually that in the current situation, there are about 65 different standards applied by control bodies that are deemed equivalent by the European Commission. Monitoring all these standards and monitoring the changes was a big work for the Commission. So they, if I say it bluntly, they wanted to get rid of it. So they changed to a more easy system and saying all products that are produced outside the European Union that do not fall under a trade agreement can only be accepted as organic in the European Union if they are produced following complete European standards. There is also here a transition system until the end of 2023. The compliance has some little possibilities for exceptions, only in very specific cases where there is, for instance, a pesticide that is used for products that are not grown in the EU, and therefore it was never put on a list of allowed pesticides. But it's very limited. and it's still in the process of being worked out. And the main, or not the main, but a very important aspect of this change of equivalence to compliance has as a consequence is if we want to keep allowing certifier groups, producer groups, sorry, then the certification of producer groups has to become part of the European regulation. And this is what has happened. What first were general guidelines now is part of the European regulation. And it has been really heavily discussed, and it is regulated in a very high level of detail now. I took some issues out, but there are many more. So in the new regulation, group certification is allowed if the group is only composed of farmers and is also led by farmers. They may do some processing or marketing, but their main activity has to be farming. It can only be small farmers, but and there are very strict criteria for it, which are listed in the sheet. This group of operators has to be established in the member state, because it can also be in Europe now that we have producer groups under one certificate, or in a third country. They have to have a legal personality. They have to be close together, geographical proximity, a joint marketing system, a system for internal controls, which is also documented. And there are quite a number of extra requirements for how the documentation is set up and how the system of control internally is set up. What of this is relevant for the Indian organic movement? I learned that in India there are quite a lot of certified groups, producer groups that are exporter-led, and they would have to be transferred to farmer-led groups. And this whole system of changing and the extra requirements may also mean extra costs. For instance, the extra cost for sampling, because now in the European law there is a minimum number of samples that have to be taken. Of 2% of the members of a group, we have to take samples. In the internal control system, there have to be taken samples. And there are quite a number of requirements that more seem like requirements for third-party certification and not internal certification. So it may be a bit over the top. It has to be assessed, but it seems like this. And there are other issues that are relevant, not maybe so much for India, but there is a number of external verifications that may be higher than the current verifications that you have to do as a certifier. And the maximum size of a group can be no more than 2,000, which for India is not so much an issue, because I understand that according to the NPOP, you can have maximum groups of 500. I come to my concluding remark. I would say that if you look at the European organic regulation, there is not a big shift in the system of the production rules. There are some changes that may be relevant, but on a whole in all, it's not like a revolution. There is the system change in import. And what is relevant for Indian producer groups is that it can only be farmer-led groups that are accepted following the European regulation. What is also relevant is that the shift from the current guidelines to the new system may lead to extra cost. And the potential mitigation, because that was also the topic of these presentations, is if the current equivalency can be turned really into a trade agreement, where as part of the trade agreement, the national system for producer groups is accepted, then the risk of having to follow completely the European rules may be mitigated. But it's a question that will be also addressed in other presentations, I think, after mine. And I think it's a very relevant one. So with this, I end my presentation. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Marian. It was a wonderful presentation and very, very insightful. We were informed last week that a couple of colleges are using these webinars for introduction to agriculture marketing. So I'm sure your presentation will help many of the students who are going to watch this, are watching now or going to watch it later on our recording. So now it's my honor and pleasure to welcome Marco Schlüter, the International Development Manager of Naturland, a good friend. And he was formerly the director of IFOAM EU for about 13 years, and my traveling partner all over Asia, where we visit many other conferences, and he visits organic projects and deals with organic associations, officials, and policymakers. Naturland has more than 12,000 farmers in India, and Marco will now explain to us the special challenges that the EU regulations which are related to India and how Naturland is going to deal with it. Marco, the screen is yours.
Yes, thank you, Sandeep. Thanks for the introduction. And indeed, normally we would meet around the world at whatever places, but it's nice to meet you and all the others again online. It's my pleasure to talk about this topic. And knowing that Marian is giving this nice and detailed presentation, I will look more on the global perspective and give you some examples. But let me just give you a short introduction to Naturland. Here you see an overview of members in Asia and farmers. It's, I think, from 1.5 years ago. So all of all, we are one among the biggest international organic farm association with almost 70,000 certified producers worldwide and almost 60. You can see that almost half of our producers are from Asia. Yeah, at least from those outside in Germany. So Naturland is based in Gräfelfing, established in 1982. But we are one among the first going international, certifying actually a tea farm in Sri Lanka at this time. And from this was the start of being very active, having farmers, members, certification projects all over the world. And as said, I mean, in India, we have over 12,000 farmers certified, which are often organized in groups. So the number of members is smaller. But so India is a very important country for the DNA and for the work of Naturland. We also ask for whole farm conversion, which is a difference to the, for example, EU regulation and many others in the world. But of course, it's very much interested in the German market access or the access to the European market. So these are often, of course, focus on the export crops. Actually, tea is the strongest, but of course also the rice, basmati rice, coconuts, cacao, coffee, spices, and so on are also very important mix. And cotton is now also in progress, so we are not there yet. But this is interesting because cotton is also in the scope of the new regulation, so this can be an interesting one. We are an international farmer association, so the farmers are our bosses. Yeah, so we're doing it for them. But one important tool is, of course, our standards, which started in 1982 and developed. And what makes us specific is that we included in our organics certification the social responsibility since 2005. So this is a mandatory part. So we do social, organic social identity is together with us. And the fair trade is a voluntary extra scheme that you can do since 2010. So what is interested in Naturland, of course, is a market access if you have a certification, and we have quite some strong partners from big retailers like Rewe or drugstores we work with too, where they co-label their main organic brand in the shop. And of course, we're working also then with the specialist stores, so like Densa Natura and many others, of course. So where we have then partners who are then certified. So with around 8,000 products labeled with Naturland, it might be that you are asking yourself, now new regulation, are there over 220 million US dollars that we export to the EU? Are they at risk? Yeah, it might be a slight question when you hear this new regulation. But of course, organic is not about business. So, and I tell you, no, it's not really at risk as far as I see. Actually, as Marian also explained, many things don't change. But of course, there's some essential ones. And I want to give you now, I mean, you had already a very good overview from Marian. But on the next slide, I just summarize what for me from a strategic point might be important. Things like production rules stay more or less the same. Actually, the derogations in the end, I think actually many derogations are kept. So even this, so many things are really stays the same. If you have now a new text, you need a new legal interpretation of the text, because it might be, the intention might be to write exactly the same. But if you structure a legislation new, if you write and rephrase the things perhaps better, the question is, in the worst case, what will the court say with a new legal text? So, although many things stay the same, and new legislation always means new legal interpretation. And I think this is the most, or one of the most. The other thing is then, as Mariana already explained, that you have the full compliance. Yeah, so they say all the trade agreements, or that you're on the third country list like India. This you have, of course, a short interims period, but all will be cancelled and renegotiated or not. But otherwise, you have to fully comply with the rules. So that's of course a change, because also before we had all the certification bodies with their own equivalent standards that they could implement, which was also to a certain extent a little bit let's say, challenging, to say diplomatic. So also this was difficult, but now it's full compliance. And this is of course very important. So the trade agreement will become more political. Yeah, I will say something. So the question, how easy is it to get one? Beside of this, I think, of course, the extended scope, like having cotton, silkworm cocoons, or in the scope might be also a chance. Yeah, so it's regulated. So I think cotton is very interesting also for India, I would suggest. Sea salt the sector was not so much in favor, but there were some very interested in it. So, but anyway, here are some opportunities. Reinforced principles. It's always principles, the question how they are then enforced in the text, because the principle is nice, but important is in the implementing rules, what does it mean? But that in the principles, the soil-related crop cultivation is of course first a very important clarification for Dutch greenhouse organic growers. But it might be also for India interesting because the soil-bound principle is very much enforced, and also land-related livestock. So principles are clarified and more clear than before. So it shows, let's say, about the integrity of the regulation. So if you have any residues detected, there are more clear measures there. So this might be also a different follow-up than you know from the past, but we have to see. And then the group certification, of course, Marian explained. Yeah, so the group size, not a problem for India, you have 500, but we will talk about the exporter and the farmer-led issue. But a new issue, which is a Brexit, it has also, of course, an impact. From now on, if nothing happens, it means that UK will be just a different third country. So you, of course, you can, probably you will have a similar regulation like the EU regulation in the UK, in the beginning at least. It might be a little different, we have to see. But still, if you have you're allowed to export to the UK, it doesn't mean you're allowed to export to the EU. If you have a very strong market to UK and you just cross over to the EU, you must rethink this in your strategy. So the trade agreement might be the option because India is now considered as equivalent country. The big difference is if you negotiate, it became political. Before it was the European Commission doing trade agreements. Now they're doing it still, but the European Parliament and the Council need to agree on. But we have to consider that's also not only a technical issue anymore. And also to consider is in this kind of great trade agreement, although it's then recognized as equivalent, it means that there are always exceptions. So when there was a trade agreement with the equivalence agreement with the US, the US, for example, exempted dairy products because they didn't like antibiotics. So if you want to have Parmesan cheese from Italy to US, it was not part of the equivalence agreement. You needed an extra NOP certification. And so even having a trade agreement, you might have to see what details are regulated differently than a general one. And okay, still, I think from your point of view, from the Indian point of view, this is the king's way. It will be the best for you if there would be an agreement because it makes things much easier and you can sleep well on the things that changes. The other one, of course, the change in group certification, also mentioned. You have the highest numbers of organic farmers worldwide. As far as I know from statistics, I saw on people around 3,500 internal control system groups. We have now 25 directly certified, some single members. As far as I understand, at least for the export, many farmers have normally organized or to a large extent in exporters. So this would be really the biggest issue. So what's important? Exporters will need to reorganize. So they need to make sure that then the farmers have an own legal group. At the moment, you don't even have a letterbox where you can write to them, but this has to change. And it might change also something on the dynamics. So if farmers get organized legally, they also develop perhaps their own dynamics. This you have to see. But so here you will find, I think the message is exporters will find practical solutions. Yeah, but it's extra work. And also for certification body and farmer station for Naturland, it will administrative work. So we have to make, for example, the contracts new, etc. So you can imagine. So a lot of bureaucracy, administration will follow here to organize it. And the key question is what it means for the dynamic on spot locally. If farmers organize themselves, will something change in the dynamic? Perhaps there are also some advantages. Okay, this was a short update, I think global picture with some highlights. I hope I could give you some inspiring day, what you should worry or not about. And I thank you very much for your attention and happy to discuss further with you.
So thank you very much, Marco. It was very, very insightful and very, very appropriate with the India focus.
So thanks to these two very informative presentations. And we have for each of you now a question. So first, Marian, it has been a very long process, what we learned. There has been hot discussions to make the EU regulations fittable to the demands of the organic community. What have been, from your view, the most challenging points? So you also gave us an overview in your presentation, but maybe you can highlight what are and what will be the most challenging points also in related to the Indian sector.
That's a good question. And well, when I take it a bit broader, what I find disappointing about this new regulation is that it still sticks to the production rules based on direct farming practices, and the other aspects that are very important in the IFOAM principles, like the fairness, and that are, even though the organic sector in Europe pushed quite hard, they're not taking up in the European regulation. So when it comes to the production rules, there are shifts, but the extra things, like the fairness things, they are not taking up in the European regulation. I think it's a missed chance. So that's not so much directly important for the Indian sector, but it's for I think IFOAM, the global movement, that we have to take more, well, we have to really take care that we load the European rules and maybe the global rules even with more values. When I take it to a more practical level, the big challenges are probably the one that Marco pointed out, how to deal with products where there are residues found, residues of pesticides or other non-allowed substances. Because I think that's an issue that is of important for producers all over the world, but also in India, that we are not producing under in a bubble. We are part of the environment. And what you see is that there is quite some pressure on the rules to make organic sort of free from pesticides label. And it puts a big challenge on farming and farming practices, because even if you're an organic farmer that is doing completely what he is supposed to do following the rules, there still can be residues in organic products. And you see that the level of trying to control organic products being free of residues is increasing inside Europe, but very much also for imports. And I think that is one of the things that that is quite challenging, and it will put and that's not only, it's now part of the discussions how to deal with residues, which is still not completely finalized yet, and it can change because there is in the new regulation there is still a sort of backdoor that the Commission, even though we have now not set a residue decertification level, there is a backdoor stating that by 2024 the Commission can come up with new rules. As a sector in Europe, we are trying to organize ourselves to come up with a good proposal before the Commission comes up with a proposal that may be bad for the sector. But yeah, that is the discussion that will continue and is really, I think, apart from the group certification, I think this is the number one topic.
Thank you, Marian, for expressing that so clearly. So Marco, a question for you, walking those long years on the corridors of Brussels, and you've seen a lot of this regulation change in the past, and Marian mentioned that, we are asking now for extension because of COVID to 2022. When do you think all these will really go live? When will this impact be felt by our Indian exporters? When is the deadline? When will this be really live?
Policy, from experience, works always very slow and then very fast. So actually policy as a principles, you discuss a lot. You ask for something and then policy decides late, and you as a sector has to live with it very quickly, because then the politicians have made their mind, they decide on something, and oops, you have just 1 month to adapt. Bad luck for you, but we have done our job. I think the two things, if the sector asks for let's say, postpone it 1 year, which makes sense. There will be a decision last minute on this. This will be typical. On the other hand, you see in COVID times, many things are possible that not possible before. I would expect they're open for this because there's very reasonable argumentation. And even the Commission, I mean, they also learn how to work digital, but I would imagine in the end, they might also be happy to have a little bit more time. It depends very much now what we presented now is not the absolutely sure final stage. Implementing rules in detail, as far as I understand, there still might be some changes possible. It's just likely what we presented today that this will be the outcome, but it's not 100% sure. So it's an option that is postponed. I would assume yes, but around the 6th of December perhaps.
Thank you, Marco, for such an exact thing. And it always was so strange to me that a farmer who's trying to save the world by not using the chemicals has all these regulations, and the farmer in India who wants to use the chemicals has no regulations. But that's the strange times also that we live in.
It's a pleasure to see everybody coming together in terms of all stakeholders of the organic industry coming under one roof.
Organic agriculture is good for the earth. We know that. It's good for our environment. However, organic agriculture does so much more.
Dear audience, we'll take a quick poll now, and the question is, what do you think after listening to these two excellent presentations and your feeling, what will be the impact of organic exports from India due to these EU regulations? Would it be minus 10%, minus 5%, it will have no impact, or it would even increase 10%? I'm launching the poll now, and you have 20 seconds to answer. 5 seconds more, and the result is most of you feel that there would be a negative impact. We have some exciting news at the beginning of this program. Shivakumar shared that we are going to have the digital platform for the BioFark India, and this will be the industry record-breaking 1-year-long engagement with the industry, where you'll have programs, more webinars like this, B2Bs, and the slogan for you is "Let's e-meet before we re-meet." Now it is my pleasure to introduce another good friend of mine, Sandeep Bhargava, who's the CEO of Cert International. He's a Master's of Science in Food Technology and an MBA in Food Safety and Organic Certification. He has over 3 decades of experience with public sector as well as the private sector. And currently he's the CEO of Cert International with around 20 national and international accreditations in organic agriculture and food, including food safety, textile, as well as sustainable agriculture. He has experience of working in over 20 countries, over 4 continents, and has done assignments for FAO, UN, and the APO, the Asian Productivity Organization, on food safety and organic. Sandeep, the screen is yours.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. And I'm Sandeep Bhargava, as introduced by Sandeep, another Sandeep, my good friend. And I'm thankful to the organizers that they have initiated a very important topic, because I think most of us got unaware of it, because this is one of the first discussion on new EU regulation which is going to be implemented from 1st January 21. This regulation is called 2018/848, and this is repealing 834/2007. Next slide, please. This the first time the regulation was published on 30th May 2018, and it is implemented from 21st January. And it has a this scope covers live and unprocessed agriculture products, including seed and other plant product material, processed agriculture products for use as food and feed. Now the whole scope is divided into certain categories, and one is the unprocessed plant products, including seed and other plant product materials. Earlier the seed and other plant product materials are under category F. No, now it is included category A. Livestock and unprocessed products are the same as earlier. Algae and unprocessed aquaculture products, processed agriculture product category D, which we are all aware that it was under the agreement earlier with NPOP. Now it is not in the agreement. Feed and wine. The most important thing which is going to happen in this uh, regulation is that they have included their few of the non-food items also. For example, like silkworm, natural gum and resins, essential oils, core stoppers, cotton, wool, hides, and salt and for the food and feed purpose. Because earlier these non-food items are not allowed to export to you, and now with these categories are included, I think that there are more scope for Indian exporters to export these categories to Europe. The import regime, I earlier also it was have been explained that it is in the two parts. One is a trade agreement with a third country. NPOP equivalency comes under the trade agreement with a third country, and control body authorized recognized for the purpose of compliance. So now the private certification bodies which are certifying as per category D, they covers under the control in the second scope. So now these control bodies need to comply with the requirement. Earlier they are certifying as per equivalence agreement. There will be few exception compliance approach. There will be authorization for certain products, and definition and catastrophic circumstances will also be mentioned in the new regulation. Transition period 5 years for equivalent countries and 3 years for the equivalent control body. So all the control bodies for the category D, they have to comply with the next year, because 3 years from 2018, and all the equivalent bodies, they have to complete their negotiation by 23, so that it will be implemented from 2025. Dealing with the most important part, which may be very important for us, because a lot of complaints are coming from European Commission, and all the certification bodies are investigating as per their own procedures. Now these are defined into the Article 27 and 28, and they define the obligation and action in the relevant of suspicion of non-compliance. This is a very systematic approach have been defined into the new regulation, and they define the certain parameters like size of the operation, number of farmers, number of products, what are the products important, quantity of the products. So these all they have defined, and based on that systematic approach only the investigation can be made, and so that we can find where is the non-compliance take place and how to eliminate it. In case of it is deliberate, then action will be taken, and precautionary measures are taken to in presence of non-authorized products and substances. So that is also defined into the new regulation. Earlier it was not part of the last regulation. Grower group certification, very, very important. I think it is covered by my friend Narayan. That's why I'm just avoiding it. Seed, which is one of the very important part, and it is very difficult to comply with the seed requirement. The new regulation says that seed need to be comply 100% organic seed is required in the farming, and derogation may be used but require authorization. But this will terminate in 2035. But there is still doubt on this requirement. In previous regime, the legislative framework was there. Every operator shall receive at least one inspection per year. But now the new regulation change is based on risk-based, and low-risk operators may get the inspection within 24 hours rather than annual, and dual certifications are not allowed. So this may also one of the very important factor that maybe many companies go for the dual certification. Yes. Input authorization, there is critical concern on the input authorizations. Substances and products that they can use on the farm should be authorized by the European Commission. Restricted inputs will be listed available for the farming and processing inputs such as fertilizers, food, etc. Authorization of non-organic ingredient at national level has been reinserted, but the period is only 6 months. Earlier it was 12 months, and 2 renewals are allowed. So out of the total 24 months, now only the 12 months for the authorization of the non-organic ingredients are required. And there is no new list of the restricted material for the cleaning and disinfectant products for processing and storage products have been inserted into the new regulation. Next, please. Labeling requirement is almost same. Only thing is that earlier for the aquaculture products, EU or non-EU agriculture was indicated. Now for the aquaculture product, separately they will mention the aquaculture product. And there is a flexibility regarding the amount of ingredient that is come from the outside. This is very important part because the Indian equivalency was due to the imported product have been added into the Indian product so that it will change the origin. Now earlier it was only 2%, now it will increase to the 5%. It means the Indian exporter processor can import the product up to the 5%, they mix into the product and they can re-export without changing the Indian origin for of it. Next, please. The new regulation is organic flavors. This is another very important part of this because earlier the natural flavors are allowed and certification bodies based on the MSDS and production process, they allow the flavors, but now the organic flavors are allowed. So no natural flavors are allowed, and this is again going to have an impact on the Indian processors because they are mostly using the natural flavors, and getting the organic flavors or carriers is becoming a very difficult for them. The natural flavor, the like for example, that if there is a natural flavor, it should be from that product only. For example, the natural lemon flavor, it is at least coming 95% from the lemon only, not from the lemongrass as it is as it's currently marketed. Ban on ion exchange and absorption raising techniques from 2021 is on force. Although the European Commission recently notified use of the ion exchange and absorption resin techniques for example, stevia products, they were then contaminated product shall not market as organic or in conversion product or used in organic production if operator do not apply precautionary measures in legal effect. So now the export or using the contaminated product is becoming difficult, and this have the legal impact on the exporters. Next one, please. The few of the concern which I see on this. First is the non-availability of the flavors, which is not available in India. I'm talking in terms of India. Revision NPOP standard as per the new regulation. This needs to be done immediately. Migration of CV from equivalency to compliance. As on today, being one of the CB which is the equivalent to the European Commission, we have not get any instruction from our accreditation body. And in fact, yesterday I asked my accreditation body and they say they are waiting for instruction from the European Commission. Knowledge of new regulation among the certification bodies. As I said in the starting, this is the first dialogue we have started or first presentation there for the new regulation. So there is no knowledge about this, particularly for the Indian CBs. Knowledge of new regulation among the operators. Operators do not have any knowledge because no program have been conducted in India so far. Like I explained, AB do not have information. Acceptance of new product by other standards. For example, cotton. Does all the cotton products imported in EU must be as per EU certified? This is again question. One concern is still there which are not listed. The in India, the new categories G, which is cotton, this cocoons and all that have been listed. They are earlier certified under category A. Now the question is that from 21st January, can these all products are certified under category A, or we have to go for the negotiation for the category G also? So this is again a very big question. Next one. So the mitigating measures which we like suggest is revision of NPOP, including GULARGO requirements, engaging CBs, organic exporters and operators into NPOP revision, training of CB staff and updating them, training of operator, exporter staff as per the new EU regulation, CB approved by EU, particularly category B, C, D, E, and G, must prepare themselves for the migrating to equivalency regime to compliance regime. Operator, exporter implement the new regulation, start dialogue with EU about the renewal of the recognition agreement. Thank you for your patience hearing.
Thank you so much, Sandeep ji. Very informative presentation as always, and many questions in the question box. Dear participants, write your email ID next to them. We will try to answer them after the next presentation, but some of them you can also write to biofark.webinar@nm-india.com. and also write your email next to your question. So if we will get back to you with those. So Karen, over to you.
For our last speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce Narayana Upadhyaya. He is the managing director of Aditi Organic Certifications, a certification body that is operating in 17 Indian states, and it's the only one that is offering certifications for the Indian standard outside the country. Aditi offers certifications under NPOP and international certifications for the United States and Canada, also fair trade and social certifications. Narayana has his master in horticulture from University of Agriculture Science in Bangalore and has over 25 years experience in certification working with IMO and Control Union before he founded Aditi. So we are excited to have your presentation. So Narayana, the screen is yours, please.
Thank you, Karen, for the nice introduction. Thank you everyone out there, all the participants for your valued time. Most of the certification operators who are involved in export business are inextricably linked with the state affairs in European Union. So any changes in EU regulation impact on our exporters. In fact, Marian, Marco and Sandeep ji have already covered the topic of the day. But in my opinion, even though a few exporters may find challenges to implement the new EU regulation, it opens a new opportunity for all of us as a country. Special thanks to those who are involved in the revision of the EU regulations, and also thanks to IFOAM Organic International and IFOAM Organic Europe, European Organic Certification Committee, who are closely monitoring the development and updating all of us. This document consists of 92 pages covering about 9 chapters, 61 articles and 6 annexures. It's like, Chakravyuh. We definitely need a modern Arjuna to understand the nitty-gritty of the standard. But nevertheless, it is a well-thought process and lot of learnings from the previous revision version of the standard. So many points require additional clarification as indicated by other panelists. EU regulation primarily covers products originating from agriculture, including aquaculture and beekeeping, and for the processed agriculture products for use of food and feed. The new regulation included silkworm cocoons suitable for reeling. So this opens up a new opportunity for all of us. Especially we can revive our sericulture industry. People from northeastern states like Jharkhand, Assam have a huge opportunity here. For Tasar silk is terminally Arjuna and termina Ballarika, which is also an Ayurvedic medicinal plant. We can think of going for agroforestry, introduce for permaculture, and new way of farming can be developed. So the new regulation, we can also able to certify Lavana Panchaka. We have Sandhi rock salt, Samudra salt, Bida salt, potassium nitrate, and even the earthen salt. So there is huge resources we have. We can explore salt manufacturing from Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, even Hindu Mahasagar. As you all know, salt has been used as a preservative for ages. Our elders did salt satyagraha in the past. Now we can think of organic salt revolution. Of course, we do not have cervine in India, but deer farming can be started. I think Scottish Highlands have a lot of this scarvane. Organic livestock production is a huge industry for us, which is untapped. So there is a possibility now to export animal husbandry product to Europe. Group certification. We already have a refined standard where we limited farmers to 500, from 25 to 500. What is the need for group certification? Basically to reduce the inspection certification costs and associated administration burden, and strengthening the local network and contribute to better market access to those small and marginal farmers' produce. So each group of operators shall only be composed of, there is a changes, the new standard says 5 hectares instead of 4 hectares. 0.5 hectares greenhouse cultivation can be included. 15 hectares exclusively in the case of permanent grassland. Only thing is the legally registered body. It has to be. But we can address those issues. You have to set up joint marketing system where individual farmers lose their freedom to sell the produce on their own. They have to depend on the group. You have to establish good internal control system with good organizing structures, roles and responsibilities to the staff members, including procurement procedure. Integrity has to be maintained between organic and in conversion. Even the retailers also can able to apply for organic certification under new regulation. It's very important when an operator is not having enough infrastructure, store or warehouse, you have to go for subcontract agreement with the system. But now the responsibility lies with both the operator and the subcontractor to comply with the EU regulation. Definition of farmers as per the new standard. Farmers means a natural or legal person or a group of natural or legal persons regardless of the legal status of that group and its members under national law who exercise an agriculture activities. I think in India, most of us have land records, but those states where they don't have land record, I think it's good to have a legal record for the landowners. Anyone can be operated in the supply chain, whether it's a producer, processor, or a trader, distributor. Only thing is that responsibilities lies with such operators to comply with the applicable standard. As per the new standard, a farm can consist of 3 types of production unit: organic, in conversion, and non-organic. Only thing is the risk involved here is the separation. Commingling can happen. So unless you have good infrastructures and clear working procedure, risk is little bit high. It's better to go for full farm conversion. Outdoor area. In the case of land associated with organic livestock production, the conversion rules shall apply to the whole area of the production unit on which animal feeds is produced. Because there will be always a chance of cross-contamination or getting pathogens to the animals. So even the feeding area needs to be under organic certification program. This is a burning subject for me. We need to have a good organic seed material which is not available. And it has to be heterogeneous in nature, untreated. I don't know whether we still need the phytosanitary process to happen using Captum or Thyram fungicide. I'm sure we'll have a better technology nowadays. Enhancement of genetical diversity is very important. Identify seed material which are resistant to pests and diseases, adapt to diverse local soil and climatic conditions. All multiplication practices except meristem culture, that is tissue culture, shall be carried out under certified organic management plan. In fact, in cotton projects, we used to have a seed plots where the farmers themselves, do the breeding. So we have, skilled farmers to do this and conserve seed materials. Hydroponic production is prohibited in organic agriculture. No culture without agriculture and no organic agriculture without soil. All plant production techniques shall be prevented to minimize any contribution to the contamination of the environment. Livestock manure or organic manure has to be properly decomposed. You can use biodynamic preparations to work well in Indian agriculture to supply micronutrients, increase pest and diseases, and to increase the shelf life of the product. I don't think each and every techniques needs to be validated. It is working, it is time tested in other countries also. For compost activation, we can use all biofertilizers like phosphorus solubilizing bacteria, azotobacter, azospirillum, effective microorganisms. We have a whole lot of beneficial microbes and enough laboratory to produce for our requirement. All traps and pheromones which are used shall be collected after use and shall be safely disposed. Livestock feeding. Changes is possible for labeling of the feeds may be used in organic farming. Category does not longer exist. So it's another industry. We need more clarification on this. Tethering of cattle is prohibited. You need to give freedom to the animals. It is allowed for individual animals under 2 conditions and can be allowed by certification authority in the farms with maximum 50 animals. Yeah, this is new product category. We can certify inputs, Panchagavya, Panchamrita, plant-based, soil inputs or pest and control agents, biodynamic preparations. Every can be now. The term organic can be used to label the products, such products. On-farm processing needs to be done thoroughly, which comes under the now processor category. You have to develop standard operating procedure for keeping the product organic integrity at every stage of handling. Tracking and traceability also important subject. Nanotechnology is not allowed, it's prohibited. It's already there in the market, many organic in. Our country is full with so many flavors. So new requirement in the case of flavoring is we have to have only natural flavors, substances. Look at this saffron, which gives color as well as flavor. That's the pride of our country. Plantation spices, field spices, essential oils, name it. There is no death of natural flavors in our natural substance in our country. Baby food. This is another industry altogether. There are new conditions for fortification of organic food. They have categorized baby food into infant, formula and formula on cereal-based food and food for special medicinal purpose, total diet replacement for weight control, non-organic ingredients. Some restrictions will be put in place for allowed use of non-organic ingredients. There are a lot of control measures which needs to be carried out. Presence of unauthorized substances has to be taken seriously. Verification of compliance through document and records. Complete tracking and traceability must be maintained. Operators declaration, very, very important, because trust and faith goes a long way in third-party certification. One must understand the obligations, do's and don'ts in organic farming, as well as self-commitment has to be there. For the notification, we have to respond quickly and all general rules to be respected. Traceability is very important to have a complete tracking and traceability starting from farm to shelf. One must have a risk-based approach. Each process must be based on the risk involved and take mitigation measures. Official investigation, you need to respond quickly without taking much time. Exchange of information between control authority, control bodies, and the operators has to happen frequently and efficiently. We need to take a lot of random sampling, confirm the organic integrity at every stage of value chain. So here come some of the mitigation measures to cope with the exigencies. Update NPOP standards. We need to update as soon as possible because 1st of January, the new regulation applicable. Update growers group certification requirement, better interpretation of terminology. We need to give clear definitions of all terminologies. Digitization of inspection certification process is the need of the hour. We need to digitize. Otherwise, the amount of paperwork we used in a group is mind-boggling, which can be avoided with the present artificial intelligence technology available with us. Design software, including all major international organic standards. Harmonization is required so that one inspection covers all the standards, can be explored. Better high-speed internet connectivity to the villages has to happen. Our Prime Minister already told this is going to happen soon. Capacity building, especially for farmers and lead resource person to enter farm data on mobile app has to be done quickly. Mitigation measures, complete adherence to the process system certification, robust organic system plan, risk assessment has to happen every stage. One must address the non-conformities and take corrective and preventive measures as soon as possible. Develop package of practice, including all approved inputs, organic seed production, good post-harvest technology. There is lot of scope here. Production is one part. What happens after harvest? We need to give good attention on this place, especially good manufacturing practices. We need to have a dedicated storage exclusively for organic products. Transportation system has to be developed. Sampling at every stage of the supply chain has to be carried out, and regular sampling. We already have enough NABL 17065, 25 accredited laboratories spread across the countries. We can utilize the lab. Thank you very much for your patience hearing. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for this elaborated explanations and informations. So we are now going to our final conclusions, and want to ask everybody, so all of the speakers, to give us their learnings and their key takeaways of this session. And let me start with you, Marian, please.
Well, as a takeaway message, I think when looking at all the 4 presentations, the Indian organic sector and the European organic sector, they are very well connected through trade, and that this change of the regulation in the European Union really has a big impact on Indian producers and exporters. And I see that even detailed small changes can have quite an impact. That's actually a realization I have from this presentation. And it's, you know, sometimes people are really very Euro-centered and living in their own bubble, and I'm not an exclusion to that. But it shows the global consequences of tinkering with the European regulation. And I think it's the takeaway message now is that it's, I think the Indian government and the European government really have to work together to see how they can give this change a soft landing in India, and really take from the Indian side the opportunities that are there, that Narayana mentioned, that it's not only negative, there are also some chances. And I think it would be a great thing if that could also be taken up. And I love the idea of the agroforestry example that you gave with the silkworms. Those are my thoughts, having listened to all the presentations.
Thank you, Marian.
Marco, over to you. As we don't have enough time to take questions, dear participants, please send them by email to biofag.webinar@nm-india.com, and we'll try to answer them by email. Marco, over to you, your takeaway, and how is Naturland with these 13,000 nearly farmers in India? How are you going to navigate this EU regulation change?
It was interesting to see. I mean, when I try to remember the discussion, Marian said to be in our bubble, which is in COVID times, of course, we're even in our houses and so on. But I remember the discussion of the new regulation was very much European centered. When we changed from equivalence or multi-system to more or less compliance, it was an easy deal in the European Parliament and member states to say, yes, we have European standards applying all over the world. Yeah. So our standard, why we should have their standard. So this was quite astonishing when I worked in Brussels to see this was an easy argument. From your survey that you did, which was quite interesting, I think around 70% expect a negative impact on the exports to the EU, which is quite astonishing. So I see this is one side. On the other side, I think the seminar was really on the right time, because it's always good to be prepared. And it's very typical that operators realize what's happening when they're already running in the problem. And a seminar like this is a chance to mitigate the problem. And so I was very impressed also by the last presentation. So the Indians started saying, okay, we might have a negative impact. Let's take it as an opportunity. So there are also opportunities. You have new crops that you can export. Yeah, mitigation measures. Tack, tack, tack. So it seems you have an agenda for solving all the Indian problems, initiated by a change in new regulation. And this I find impressive. So I see 70% negative expectation, but also a very proactive way of dealing with it. So I like this a lot. In German angst, we always see very much a problem. It seems that in India we have also the spirit of let's deal with the problem, and I think that's the right way. So deal with it as a sector. Yeah, don't rely on policy, but don't forget about policy. And of course, push your government to find a good way of having an agreement, a trade agreement on the midterm. There's also a transition period, so I think you can handle it well. And a mixture of political action from those who govern you, as well as a proactive sector who's taking a creative stamp to it. And listening to the Indian presentation, I'm very confident that you are able to do this.
Yeah, Sandeep, can we have your key takeaways real quick in 2 minutes from this session, and what do you have for our participants?
My takeaway is that we need to work hard from Indian perspective, that we need to work hard with the new regulation, comply with the new requirement, prepare our exporters for the new regulations so that they will comply with the new requirements. That's it. That's what I say for this.
Please, your key takeaways.
This needs to happen at a regular interval. We need to interact with everyone concerned, the entire supply chain, who are involved in this organic industry must interact closely and take individual responsibility. We believe in taking responsibility by all the stakeholders. If unknown microbes brought us together like this with organic products, we are very soon going to have a one world and no hunger stage. This is my takeaway from this. Thank you very much.
We are going to the end of the webinar of Organic Webinars. We thank all the speakers, all our panelists, all our experts. I may mention that many of our experts have already got some questions from the question answer box and answered that. So, and if not, if there are more questions, please add your email address as Sandeep said before. We say a big thank you also to Nürnberg Messe to make this possible, to do this organic webinars. I guess many people have a lot of takeaways from these sessions, from these expert sessions. And yeah, Sandeep, please, you also have to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. And as usual, very informative. Thank you all the panelists, thank you all the attendees. And just to let you know that biofark.webinar@nm-india, you can nm-india.com. You can send all your email queries and we will answer them by email. And those people who have mentioned your email on the chat, we will get back to you with your answers. Just want to reiterate that we will be at the same place next week where we talk about the impact of certification impact of COVID on certification, actual inspections. So please watch out for that same place, same time, 2 weeks from now. Some exciting news which Shivakumar shared with us in the beginning, that we have BioFark India going digital this year. So October 29 to 31st, there will be a kickoff event, 3 days of food shows and talks, webinars like this. There'll be roundtables, and after that it'll be a year-long chance for you to interact with producers. A lot of people I mentioned on your questions. You can look for certifying bodies. You can look for all your organic requirements, and this will be available for you all year long. So just thank you all for participating. Thank you again for all the participants. And Ravi, can we have that thank you slide?
I saw a lot of thumbs up in the chat box, so thank you for that also. You will be hopefully with us next time, 3rd of September, when it goes about the emerging trends in organic certification, post-COVID also. We see you then, and waiting your attention also then. And yeah, I can also say bye-bye, and
Bye, everyone.
see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.